Welcome, everybody. This is Patrick Hiebert with the Freedom Lovers Life podcast. I never know what the number is, and you're getting used to these kind of introductions where I have no clue what number we're at right now. But I have a very special guest today. I have Mario Pacheco, who is our Atris or Veritas Villages property manager for Costa Rica. And Mario is also a lawyer and wears a lot of other hats. Pretty good cowboy, I'd say. Takes us on the horseback riding. So welcome, Mario. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Patrick. How are you?
Yeah, why don't you tell us just a little bit about your background as a Costa Rican and anything else you want to mention?
Well, as a Costa Rican, I was born in 1968. I have lived here for most of my life. My dad was a career diplomat, so he took us in several of his journeys. One of them was Canada. I was lucky to go to high school in Ottawa, and then we moved for a while to Vancouver, where I spent about a year, and then I returned to Costa Rica to start my studies as an attorney and notary public.
Great. Well, it was probably a good time back then to go to high school in Canada or live in Vancouver and Ottawa, but I wouldn't say so much now. Now the schools are pretty woke, and back in our day, we got some pretty good education. Canada used to be usually in the top 3 with like Switzerland and Sweden or something like that. Now I think it's in the 30-something position, so it's not quite the same anymore. But those were good times in Canada. So a lot of our clients that move into Veritas Villages are Canadian, a lot of Americans and Europeans and Australians and Kiwis and all sorts of places. But a lot of Canadians right now are moving. So, your experience in Canada is probably helpful as well to understand the differences. Let's jump right into a couple of things. I mean, I think when people move or expats move to another country, what this is really about, I guess, to back up a little bit, is we are introducing our Veritas Village Atenas over the next few weeks. Atenas is a town in area in Costa Rica. It's its claim to fame is the best climate in the world. That's a pretty tall statement, but having been there so many times now, I can attest to the fact that that's true. It's amazing temperatures, kind of like 19 to 26, 27 degrees Celsius, probably, 70 to mid 80s all the time, all year round. It's kind of like everybody calls it kind of springtime all the time. And it's a beautiful place. It took me probably 40 or 50 trips to find this. And fortunately, Mario had some connections as well. And we found this property. It's kind of the last large land tract in the Atenas area, over 340 acres. So we're super excited about our newest Veritas Village starting up now. And so one of the things I was going to mention is that for a lot of people moving to new countries, for expats moving, they kind of want to, you hear a lot of things about Central America, right? So one of the things is kind of what are the land rights in terms of ownership for foreigners coming into the country? Maybe you can just give us a brief idea of that.
Well, that's one of the main advantages of Costa Rica. Foreigners can enjoy the same benefits as a Costa Rican citizen. And the National Registry keeps a very tight record of land movements and what's going on. That's what has made it so appealing for foreigners to invest, because of the security of owning property in Costa Rica.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we've always been, huge fans of Panama, and I've always been a massive fan of Costa Rica. The one complaint I always had about Costa Rica is the government seems to think it's God's gift to the environment. So they made, water rights difficult and just, anything to do with green stuff. So that was, to me, it was always a little bit on the woke side. But fortunately, in the last couple of elections, you've kind of had more conservative value presidents. And, we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think one of the interesting things that's, aligns very similar to Panama is you can use a purchase of real estate as a investment for a residency visa. And in Costa Rica, it's actually less expensive than Panama, which was kind of surprising when I first heard that. It's $150,000 US dollars for an investment visa, a residency program in Costa Rica, where in Panama, there's the friendly nations of 200,000 and the golden visa, they call it, at 300,000, which is apparently going up to 500,000 here in the next little while. So Costa Rica is really very competitive. And almost everybody that's buying a home is going to spend more than $150,000 on a combination of land and a home. So it's pretty easy to get residency in the country. So have you seen that residency program used a lot by expats?
Yes, actually, as you say, the investment has to be over 150,000. One of the greatest advantages that Costa Rica offers is that once that you submit, you have basically the full rights until you have the final approval. So once that you submit all the paperwork, you can come and go as you feel like during this time of approval. The time of approval usually takes about a year. And luckily, we have in Costa Rica, it's very common to have lawyers that specialize in certain fields. So if you have the right attorney walking you through the process, it should take you for about a year to get fully approved.
And like you said, in the interim, you still have, the same rights to come and go as you please, basically, right? And
That's
that's a
right.
key point because, in the past when we sold community property to people, a lot of times it was their plan B, but they didn't tie residency to that, right? They just thought, oh, I got a home in Panama or Nicaragua or Belize or wherever it was, but didn't think about the residency part. And then COVID hit and that changed everything. And people realized, well, I got to be able to stay there for more than a tourist visa of 3 months or whatever they are. And so the permanent and residency program is an important thing to combine with buying a property somewhere in a country. So, obviously we have lots of lawyer connections and we'll help anybody that's buying in Veritas Village to connect with those investment visa specialist lawyers. So, but it's like I said, it's just kind of surprising that it's $150,000, which I think Costa Rica could honestly demand quite a bit more, but I'm glad it's not. I think it's very affordable for a lot of people. So that's great. I mean, you have the Honduran ones, which are like $50,000 or whatever, but Costa Rica, and everybody knows that Costa Rica is pretty much the destination in Latin America when it comes to, seeing the beautiful nature and the beaches and everything. And Costa Rica's done an amazing job, marketing itself for so many decades now. And so, if you say Costa Rica to somebody or you say Honduras to somebody, they might both be beautiful places, but people are much more at ease considering living in Costa Rica. And it's obviously has a huge expat community already in many areas. Um, like I said, I mentioned the new president, Laura, what's her name? Laura Fernandez
Laura
Delgado.
Fernandez, that's right.
Yeah.
She
So
just took
she's
off.
she's kind of, middle right leaning, from what I understand, conservative on law and order, anti-crime, wants investment in the country, pro-business, all those sorts of things. She's actually been compared to Bukele a little bit in El Salvador for her stance on crime, which I think is great, because Bukele is a rock star on crime as far as I'm concerned. It pulls no punches when it comes to putting criminals in jail, and the world needs, frankly, more of
Right.
that, in my opinion. So that was another reason why, we're looking at all these different things, all the boxes that we got to check when we're choosing the next country for a Veritas Village. And for two elections in a row, the country has gone more and more to, middle conservative, well, at least conservative family values, which is important for us. And what's your thoughts on how the locals feel about Laura, president?
Well, this new government that this is the second term of this government has a high approved rate uh, from the citizenship. Basically, she won with a landslide. As you said, the biggest issue here is standing up against crime. And Bukele has been here several times. As you know, he has strong family ties with Costa Rica. A lot of his family lives actually in Costa Rica, and they're taking a big stand against crime. In the cities, nothing really is happening. It's very safe to live in the cities in Costa Rica, but it's mainly the ports that are difficult. So she's taking a very high, strong presence in these areas, installing new scanners, putting additional police force. She hired over 2,000 new policemen to cover this area, and we're also taking the Bukele system for prisons. We're building a very high-end prison in the Atlantic area of Costa Rica, so that people know that this government means business in regards to that.
Well, I think that's half the battle too, just showing that they're doing something and means business. I mean, the only thing that really changes crime is when criminals suffer. So it's the reality. It's like
That's right.
all the woke nonsense of, the human rights violations, and nobody ever considers the human rights violations of the victims. So, I'm very happy that President Fernandez is really strong on that. And I think just in general, maybe you can kind of comment on, like, one of the reasons we love Latin America, and it's sort of setting you up for this comment, I guess, is just the strong family values of the culture, right? And people have big families. People take care of their parents as they become older, and all those sorts of things that really isn't happening much in Europe and North America anymore. People send their parents to homes, and it's just a different world. And I think that's one of the things I love about this area, living in Latin America the most. But how is that, that feeling in Costa Rica? I mean, obviously you've had a lot of expats over the last 40 or 50 years move into the country. Has that really diminished that, or is it more that the locals impact the expats?
Well, as you're saying, we're still a very conservative country. It starts by Article 1 of the Constitution that says that the family is the basis of the country and the community itself. Costa Rica is very neighborhood, family oriented. As you say, most families are about five members, are composed of about five members. And we have very strong family traditions. Uh, People still celebrate enjoying several days of the week dedicated to family. In my family, for example, we make it a rule that we have dinner every Wednesday and every Sunday. And that kind of keeps the families together. So we see young kids that they appreciate uh, family time. They're not rushing to move out of their parents' home as it happens in other parts of the world. And also, I think it's very strongly tied to the education. Costa Rica spends a large percentage of its budget in education versus having an army, for example.
Right.
And so people are very educated, that keeps their values intact, and very, very family oriented, especially in Atenas. I'm amazed that in Atenas, every time I take somebody, I tell them, listen, don't be worried if somebody comes up to you and wants to shake your hand or just says hi. It's kind of a custom of the area. People actually take a lot of care from each other's neighbor. They're usually looking over your house and seeing that you're okay, and very, very old family traditions.
Yeah, it was interesting that you say that. The other day I was driving in the truck and the window down in a tennis, and somebody just walked up and said, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you looking to move here, or what's going on?" Like, if I was driving in just about anywhere in the US, at least at this point, I'd be like, hey, hang on a sec, get away from the car, right? Like, I don't know what's going on here. But yeah, I love that kind of old fashioned values. It's just like, welcoming people to the neighborhood that, they hadn't seen me before, right? So I guess it's like, oh, this is a new guy. Let's go talk to him, right? And that's just kind of like the small town in Canada that I grew up in. That was the same sort of thing that you would do. So to me, it's great. Well, you mentioned a tennis, and let's talk a little bit about the benefits of a tennis. The other day, you told me that I think it was Century 21 or Remax or one of the realtor companies there was the most popular or did the most sales in Costa Rica, which sort of surprised me because I would have thought it was like Nosara or Guanacaste area or something like that. But people are really discovering a tennis now, it seems.
That's correct. Yeah, the Remax of Atenas is the Remax that sells the most real estate in the country. It's amazing the rotation properties have, and this is new projects because if you check all the communities in the neighborhood Guasimos where you're at, you're going to see that they're all sold out. Over 15 1,500 families live in that area of expats only.
Wow.
So you find that it's a destination. I would guess not only the climate, as you know, Atenas has been mentioned by National Geographic to having the best climate in the world. Temperatures, as you mentioned before, they go from 16 degrees at night to about 27 degrees Celsius during the summertime. And you have a very, very comfortable breeze all day long. Being in the mountains, it creates several microclimates around the area. Only on your property, well, it's a pretty large property, but you have three microclimates. So you can actually feel it from the east side to the west side. You can actually feel it a little bit,
Yeah.
the difference between temperatures.
That's what I love
Um,
about Veritas Village tennis is that people can literally choose from three different climates and be in the same community as everybody else. So it's kind of crazy. One of the things I also like about tennis, and this kind of harkens back to what I was mentioning earlier, is that expats often are concerned about what the feelings of the locals are towards expats. And what I've seen in a tennis is there's just a complete blend. There's a lot of expats living in tennis already, but everybody's, seems to be getting along perfectly well. And, everybody's shopping in the same markets and things like that and laughing and enjoying their lives together. And it doesn't seem to be any kind of angst or anything from the locals that, oh, we got all these gringos moving in and they're driving the prices up and that. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, Atenas is basically a cultural mosaic composed of U.S. citizens, Canadians, and Europeans mostly. That's about 90% of the expats are from those regions. And again, I think it's part of the education. We understand that the expats are bringing not only their good customs, but they're bringing their money and their capital and they're investing and they make things happen. So as the Costa Rican government is doing, also the citizenship supports foreign investment, and they are very welcoming to foreigners.
Yeah, and I think that the good thing for the local Costa Ricans is that the expats that tend to move into a place like a tennis are people that have built companies and people that are, they're not woke. They're not sitting there with their hand out like, I want free Medicare and I want all this kind of stuff. They're just people that are doers and, our kind of residents, right? The freedom oriented, sustainable oriented people. And so I think, you get a really good mix of people, and that's why they get along so well. I mean, obviously the expats are creating businesses and creating jobs and things as well for locals, but likewise they're, going to local restaurants and all the different things and supporting. So it's a very symbiotic relationship that seems to be working perfectly in Atenas. Because sometimes, you know, you go to a town in some countries and you get this feeling like, the locals don't feel that crazy about me being here, right? I'm the white guy in the community and I stick out, right? So I haven't felt any of that in a tennis. In fact, the opposite. It's just been extremely welcoming every time that, you know, Spencer and I have been there, and Andrea and Sarita were there with you last week, and so it, you know, they had a great experience as well. So it's, to me, it's just awesome. But we usually kind of keep these little podcasts pretty short, but what expats do you think thrive in a community like a tennis, and which ones tend to, you know, maybe be not fail, but just decide, this isn't for me and leave? Is there any kind of things that you see in people that would be like, if if you keep this kind of attitude, you'll do well?
Well, the people that mostly thrive in Atenas are people that want to become permanent residents. If you're not looking for the rush of the waves and the full-time partying, Atenas is the town for you. That's why about 90% of the expats are full-time residents, versus what you find at the beaches. In the beaches, you find a totally different rhythm of life, um, a totally different cost scheme, or cost of living. And well, Atenas is just blessed with the perfect location. If you want beaches, it's only an hour away to reach some of the most beautiful beaches in the Central Pacific. But if you're looking for the rush of the party, and stuff like that, then, well, I guess you have to get in your car and drive 30 minutes to a very large, also expat community, which is called Santana, where you find mostly the high-end restaurants and the bars and the nightclubs and entertaining itself. Not that you do not find it in Atenas, but it's a different rhythm of life. It's more of a homey uh, ambience.
Yeah, I think it reminds me a lot of our Veritas Village, Playa Pacifica in Nicaragua. If you want to go party and live that life, be you know, on the beach, surfing parties or whatever all the time, then you go to San Juan del Sur, which is a few hours away. Or if you want just a normal life, and you can always go to those different things if you want, but you know, close enough to the city there, you can shop in the city and then go home and have a peaceful, quiet evening in your own home. Also on the beach in that case, but just a quiet one. And so, yeah, I really like the vibe of a tennis. I know, and I've said it before to you as well, that whenever we choose a location for a new Veritas Village, the last checkbox on the long list that we have is always, would I live there? And I absolutely would live in a tennis in Veritas Village, a tennis there. I think it's going to be an amazing community with all the amenities that we've got planned, and just even the horseback riding that you and Spencer and I have done around there, with, you know, down to the waterfalls, multiple waterfalls on our property, the tilapia pond, you know, all the horse stables, and just where the, you know, the restaurant site's going to be, and all the different things, and even probably a more dense kind of village towards at the bottom area, closer to the main highway, for people that want to be able to commute back to the city for jobs. It's basically got everything. So I'm extremely excited about it. And I think it's great for our future residents there that Atenas is becoming one of the most popular areas in the country. Obviously, that's going to give them a likely capital gain on their home if they decide to ever sell it. So it's right now it's pretty affordable to get into, and that might not be the case for forever. So, you know, looking forward to kind of getting in as we did, and you know, we always have, knock on wood, we've been a bit lucky too. As we plan for these things, the government seems to be going in the right direction, you know, and all those sorts of things. They create good residency programs, and, you know, so far it's been great for us in the countries we've been in. So super excited to do the Costa Rican community, and, you know, we're kind of in the middle of planning it now, and we'll be releasing it soon. Hopefully, when this podcast comes out, it'll likely be the kind of the opening event for the Costa Rica tennis property. And I don't know, is there anything else that you'd like to say to people that might be watching this about Costa Rica or tennis or anything at all?
Well, something that I would like to mention, and I think it's important, is to tell them that one of the main successes of Atenas is its location. You can enjoy mountain living and being 30 minutes away from an international airport that has flights to almost everywhere that are direct. You have international hospitals that are not more than 30 minutes away. And also, you have all the pluses of living in a first world country because you have all the services. You have high-speed internet. You have all the international chains of supermarkets. Everything that you need, you're like as in Panama, you're going to find in Costa Rica.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Mario. I think, it's great. You can always talk about a million more things, like there's, one thing I didn't mention, I guess, is Costa Rica also has a territorial tax system, much like Panama. So, if you live there and you're an architect and you're doing work for somebody in the US or Europe or something like that, that's outside of the territory, so non-taxable. That's always an important thing for a lot of people that are either bringing their businesses or they're entrepreneurial or, self-employed. If they can minimize the taxes, that's always a huge benefit. I find that the difference between living in Canada and living in Panama is my costs have gone down about 70%, and most of that is taxes. All right. So if I was making, just for round numbers, if I was making $100,000 a year, I could be making $30,000 a year and have still a better lifestyle because things are still less expensive here. But if you can actually do things where you make anywhere near what you were making in North America or Europe without paying much tax on it, it's a huge difference in quality of life. And so the same thing can apply to Costa Rica. So that on those, ticking of the boxes that we go through, territorial tax and $150,000 residency program are huge. And I think then on top of that, you have what is arguably the prettiest country in Central America. Every time I go to Costa Rica, I'm just blown away with like toucans and macaws and monkeys and everything everywhere. I love animals and kind of I'm a bit of a nature freak, and I could someday when I'm not doing this anymore, I'm gonna live in an area where I have a lot of animals surrounding me again. I grew up with that as a child in Canada, and I want to get back to that, but it's hard to drive through Costa Rica and not think this is just an amazingly beautiful country. And, so it's just really nice that they're kind of becoming more firmly implanted in family values, conservative values. And I'm not, I'm libertarian. I'm not on the liberal or the conservative side of the fence politically, but values wise, right? These days it seems to be more a little bit centric or to the right versus, the left seems to have gone a bit crazy. So maybe they'll come back someday. But right now I think, can't say enough good things about Costa Rica, and we're super excited to show everybody the community. I think it's going to be really hard for somebody to come to Veritas Village Atenas and not want to live there. That's what's happened to me anyway. So,
I agree completely.
but thanks, Mario. Really appreciate your time, and we'll see you again pretty soon, I'm sure. And take care. Say hi to the family, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you, everybody. Thank you for watching. All right, freedom lovers, that wraps up today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like the video. And if you're interested in learning more about freedom-oriented living and community options in Latin America, you can find more about Veritas Villages in the link below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.